Hello there. Welcome to the Harley Carnes Podcast. Harley on the headlines. It's a quick look and pretty frequently some opinion on stories of the day. You know, the great part is we never know what the day is going to offer. Different stories all the time. And some repeats, of course, because some just don't want to go away. Anyway, I hope there's something worthwhile in these brief visits for you and that you will come back. Help invite others to join us too. Like, follow, subscribe, that sort of thing. Tell somebody. It's still more risky than it's worth running drug-laden fast boats in the U.S. in the Pacific. 4 more boats, 11 more smugglers taken out by the Coast Guard and the Navy this week. Since September, when the campaign against the drug smugglers began, 174 of them have been killed, and tons of cocaine, fentanyl, and other drugs have been fed to the sharks, as 51 drug boats were taken out. These boats belong to the drug cartels and criminal gangs that Southern Command and the Coast Guard watch continually. They watch the ports. They watch the boats being loaded with the drugs. They watch the armed cartel members get in the boat. They watch from the ground, and they watch from the air. The administration says the U.S. is under attack by the cartels who poison Americans, and they're fighting back. Iran shut off a chunk of the world's oil supply by blocking and closing down the Strait of Hormuz. We all know that, right? So the U.S. has blockaded Iran and shut off Iran's oil tanker trade entirely. Nothing else is getting out either from any Iranian port on either side of the strait in the Arabian Gulf or in the Gulf of Oman. Central Command says no ships have slipped the blockade in the first 24 hours of the lockdown, and 6 ships were turned around and sent back to an Iranian port in the Gulf of Oman. It's estimated the blockade costs Iran more than $400 million each day. There is just less than a week left in the 2-week ceasefire. If Iran does not return to negotiating with signals that it is ready to give up forever any nuclear weapons aspirations and to live peaceably in the world, then presumably the bombing will resume. President Trump says the talks could resume in 2 days. Oh, and by the way, Israel and Lebanon are talking. It's their first diplomatic talks in decades, as Israel has been systematically taking apart Hezbollah and Hamas in Lebanon. My first reaction to seeing this story in Politico is, wow. I mean, is that really true? It's from Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky says, for the first time in history, a company of his warrior robots have defeated human Russians and chased them from a position they were occupying. Entirely unmanned weapons platforms fought with Russian soldiers and defeated them. And he's talking about robots from the air, of course, drones, remotely piloted or aimed and on autopilot. And he's also talking about on the ground. Ukraine has armed the kind of robots on wheels or tracks that are sent typically into burning buildings with cameras. They have automatic rifles, though, grenade launchers. They can be controlled from a distance by Ukrainian forces without being shot at. That's a big deal. One AI-enhanced robot named Droid TW 7.62, probably a reference to the caliber, was ready and able to detect, track, and capture 3 Russian soldiers, brought them back as POWs. What's the point if you're a human being of shooting at a robot you can't kill that'll shoot you back? I guess you go along with them if they say, follow me, follow me. Because, you know, the other side of it is, you know, if the robot's talking to you, there's a human being actually doing the talking and they're watching you. So Ukraine has used robots on the ground 22,000 times, which they say has saved an awful lot of soldiers' lives. Now, we're going to take a moment on this particular next subject. There's a new Gallup poll that indicates Americans' opinions about how clean the environment is are at an all-time low. Only 35% positive. 2/3 of us have the impression that the environment is getting worse. And that's not true. This poll is an outstanding example of how media coverage affects opinions even when it's not the truth. Now, some of us have lived long enough to remember the smog that was an everyday reality in many American cities. We can remember when Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes, was considered a dead lake. Very, very few fish lived in it. It was so polluted. New York Harbor was doornail dead, and it was illegal to fish within miles upstream because many of the fish you might catch had lesions, cancers, and other maladies. I remember interviewing fishermen and looking at the fish they caught and said, "You're going to eat that for real?" The guy says, "Yeah, we're hungry." The situation was dirty in a great many places. Today, the air we breathe is some of the cleanest we have ever had during the industrial age. The water in most American rivers and streams teems with life today and is safe for fishing, swimming, and even drinking with typical water treatment. Now, that's what we know anecdotally and just from living in the world. But let's get specific. First, on air quality. There are 6 principal pollutants of the air. Nitrous oxides are down 73% just since 1990. Nitrogen dioxide is also measured and comes from vehicles and factories. It's lower by 63% since 1990. Carbon monoxide is down 80%. Lead is down 98%. Ozone has improved. PM 2.5 is a measurement of the fine inhalable particles that can be harmful to our health that just float along in the air. They are 2.5 microns and smaller. That measurement has improved by nearly 50% in just the last 5 years. All of those metrics are huge improvements. And if you go back to the mid-70s when the EPA started, the improvement in our air is absolutely dramatic across the board. Since the 70s, total polluting emissions are down about 80%. Our air is essentially very clean and getting better. Now, how about water quality? In the 1970s, many communities did not have water treatment facilities. Now, virtually every American has water treatment of its water. Waterborne infectious diseases have dramatically improved. One area that has become worse is microplastics. That was not a problem 50 years ago. Today, we live in a plastic world, and most of us are believed to have up to a teaspoon of microplastics in our brains and a whole lot more than that in our bodies. This is distinctly not good, and it's okay to get pissed off about it and decide we've got to do something. By the way, here's one tiny way to help ourselves. When we plant anything in plastic pots, we add microplastics right into the soil we would like to protect and into the food we get from that soil. Stop using plastic pots or other containers. Think biodegradable in the garden or pottery for flower planters. It just makes sense, and it's not hard to do. Pharmaceuticals, drugs that get into our waters are also modern issues, and they're not getting better. They are the major issues that affect our water supply, along with aging infrastructure. So microplastics and pharmaceuticals, they've gotten worse. My point is, when you hear about a poll that says only 35% of us think positively about the environment, put on your thinking cap. We have made vast strides and huge improvements in our environment. The constant drumbeat of reportage from the media during that time and messaging from the climate and the ecology lobby has been negative and alarmist. It's worth pointing out the climate and the ecology lobbies are multi-billion-dollar enterprises. Make of that what you will. This is April 15th, one of the most unpopular days of the year because it is tax day. It is the day the government officially reaches into your wallet and takes out its bounty. President Trump's new tax exemptions have helped save money for about 53 million taxpayers. That's according to the Treasury Department and the IRS. It's still a big chunk what the government takes, though. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby thinks it would be a good idea to merge with American Airlines. That would be big, and it would be a big problem for antitrust considerations. A United American Airline would be a mega monster airline, world's largest by far. They'd own 40% of the domestic airline travel market. It'd be shocking if it were to be allowed, and if it could pass legal challenges. It might also be bad if it did. The world's oldest first-time grandfather lives in Australia. Charles Smith waited a long time to be a granddad. He was 91 years old, 209 days, when his granddaughter Isla was born. Blame it on his son Ashley, who waited until age 55 to get married to Hannah. By the way, Charles Smith is active and independent at his age. He drives all over Australia, lives in a camper van, and has a boat on Moreton Bay. His son says he is not a traveling hermit. He has a great circle of friends and a positive attitude and has not slowed down at all with age. His favorite beverage is tea. Age 91. You go, Charles Smith. Pretty impressed. I guess that'll do it. Want to thank you for dropping by. Appreciate it. Tuning in. Hope you'll come back. And bring some folks with you. Would you do that for me? You've given me a little bit of your time today, and I appreciate it. It's also worth mentioning that we are also found on Spotify, both video and audio, in case you want to pick it up while you're moving around, as well as on X and Facebook. I'm Harley Carnes. Until next time, do yourself a favor. Make some good, conscious choices in your life. Make a decision to be happy and fly safe. It is the only way to get there.